Episode 5 of Agatha All Along was absolutely insane. I love this episode. We're going to dive into everything, all of the big reveals, because honestly, there's more than just the big one at the end. But before we do that, if you guys could hit like on this video, let's try to get this to 50 likes. And also join this community. I would love to have you here. We love talking about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, all of that kind of stuff. I can't wait anymore. Let's talk about the big reveals that happened in this week's episode of Agatha All Along.
I'm Spider-Man.
So this episode focuses really on Agatha's trial, and it's really interesting because I love the whole aesthetic that they go for with kind of the 80s, 90s serial killer Friday the 13th Halloween vibe. The horror elements, the set design, all of the backdrops in the show have been superb, and I'm so glad we're getting this in the same vein of WandaVision. Now this episode actually has several connections to WandaVision, and we're going to get into that shortly. But as far as this episode goes, what basically happens is we go to Agatha's trial, and the whole point of Agatha's trial is to punish her. They start playing with a Ouija board, and they actually end up summoning Agatha's mother. Eleanor Hart possesses Agatha and takes over her body, turning her into this zombie exorcist-like creature. In order to free her from Eleonora, Alice Wu actually uses her powers that she kind of received back at the end of last week's episode to free Agatha from her mother. And while this does work, while Alice is able to remove Eleonora from Agatha, Agatha turns back to her old version of herself and ends up absorbing Alice's power. So much so that Alice ends up dying. In a way, we think that Agatha wasn't doing this on purpose, but also we can't tell because, well, it's Agatha Harkness. I really like this because if you would have told me a couple weeks ago that Agatha would have saved Alice and would have regretted what she just did, I would have said you were lying. But now it kind of goes back and forth. Did she mean to do this? Was she just trying to get her power back? Was this the whole plan the whole time? But Agatha seems to have a little bit of regret. And I'm just saying a little bit, not a lot. It's also really important to notice during this trial, we have Aubrey Plaza's character, Rio Vidal, making some very interesting comments. There's a point where the witches believe that the embodiment of death is controlling the Ouija board, and then Aubrey Plaza's character laughs hysterically. She's having a great time in this episode. She's waiting for her bodies, like she said in previous episodes, and once Alice dies and they leave the trial, she stays behind with Alice's body. We don't see what happens to her, and then we get to the really big reveal of the episode. Especially with last week's episode, Teen is developing relationships with these witches, becoming their friends, and in this episode, Teen actually builds a witch's broom with Alice. So they were becoming really good friends, and seeing what Agatha just did to Alice really put a damper on Agatha's relationship with Teen, so much so that some crazy stuff happens. Agatha goes up to Teen after all of this happens, and it seems like she's realized who Teen is. Agatha says to Teen, "You're so much like your mother." Knowing that it's not her son, Nicholas Scratch, who does kind of make an appearance earlier on in the episode with the Ouija board, his spirit was trying to help Teen save Alice by stopping Agatha. And also, if you look at Lillian's character, she has been foreshadowing this moment for so long in the last couple episodes. In last week's episode, she was telling Alice don't, and then we hear save Agatha, and if we put those together, it's don't try to save Agatha. And we see what happens because of that. But Agatha says to Teen, "You are so much like your mother." This sets Teen off, and in this episode, he's wearing blue and red colors, very similar to what Billy Maximoff wore in WandaVision, as well as the Wiccan character Billy Maximoff, or Billy Kaplan, from Marvel Comics. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point that this character Teen is in fact Wiccan, maybe even Billy Maximoff. So much so that after Agatha brings up his mother, he gets his magic, controls the other two witches, and causes them to bury Agatha in the mud. Now it's weird because Teen has always been this super positive character in the previous episodes, but now he's kind of doing some pretty maniacal things, even though Agatha, yes, is evil. He's kind of doing the same thing that his mother, Wanda Maximoff, had done to the people of Westview, and is controlling these witches, causing them to bury Agatha. Not only that, but at the end of this episode, he has a crown that forms on his head in almost the same shape as Wanda's crown. And to cap it all off, this episode ends with this crown forming on Teen's head, who is now supposedly Billy Maximoff, and the song by Billie Eilish plays that says, "You should see me in a crown." It's perfect. I think this was a very good cliffhanger. Although the episode was only 25 minutes after credits and before the intro sequence, I thought this was a a really fun, quick episode. Lots of character things to unpack. We now know that this is Wiccan moving forward. I think Joe Locke, who plays Teen, actually confirmed this in an interview recently. He's had to keep this secret for so long, and it's so exciting seeing the return of this character from WandaVision. And now we have this character who is actually a physical embodiment, who is a real person in this reality. So will Wanda come back and find out that she actually does have a son? I don't know. That would be really cool. On the other hand, we have Rio Vidal's character, who is having a great time, not really caring much about anything other than the state of being that Agatha is in. Several hints to death, possibly pointing towards her being the embodiment of death in this show moving forward. This is getting so exciting. This show is so fun. It's so scary, and I'm so glad that I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I would. Next week, we're probably going to get Lillian's trial and see her backstory and how her foreshadowing and senses of future and past come together to tell a bigger story. At the same time, it's very interesting following the character developments of Teen and Agatha being kind of the main characters of the show, considering they are not getting along right now, so much so that Teen buries Agatha in the mud. Lastly, just going back to Teen's actions here, it feels very weird considering he's been such a good character so far. He's doing these kind of evil things by controlling the bodies of these other witches that he could possibly be calling friends, and it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you pull in the fact that this could be the work of the Scarlet Witch or the sigil that Wanda placed on him to protect him. Maybe now that Agatha has figured out who he is, the protection sigil is actually going after the people who are trying to out him. I think that's really cool. It's so fun to theorize about this stuff. I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. This was a very fun episode. I can't wait for next week, and I will see you all very, very soon.